like that, and I'll keep an eye on the participants coming in, and then we'll add on the hob as and when. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Lovely.
Ready to go.
So,
welcome everyone. It's so nice to see all these familiar faces and not so familiar faces in my kitchen. And no, it's lovely. So I've chosen some dishes that I thought were slightly unusual from our travels in Italy and from writing all these Italian books over the years. And I wanted to start with the calzone, which is a very thin pastry, which is going to encase a filling of leeks and onions. So it's a Pugliese dish that I learned from a lady called Rita, who bizarrely, Kay Gale went to stay with her, and so knows this woman, Rita. So I will start to make the pastry, and I'll talk to you about it as we go along. And Rita, when I met her, which was about probably 12, 15 years ago now, lived in this masseria in Puglia, and she had about 10 cats or something. And I think there was a daughter floating about somewhere, but she was pretty much on her own, running this Airbnb and cooking for everyone and doing lessons, and completely in her stride. And her food, I thought, was really exceptional and really, really made with love and care. And she showed me this lovely old book, I think from something like 1700s or something. And it was her great, great, great grandmother's book of recipes, and all written in that kind of copper plate script. I mean, so beautiful. And she wanted it to be translated and made into a cookbook. And I did take it to our publishers at the time, and sadly, they didn't think, you know, there would be enough demand, but it's there. If anybody wants to do it, I'm sure Rita's still got this amazing book that, you know, is full of these lovely old recipes. So she taught me this recipe of how to make this very fine pastry. And I suspect that it is a very ancient recipe, because you make your pastry with 00 flour, typical Italian pasta flour. This is not Italian, actually. This is Waitrose Best. And I think it's quite heavy compared to Italian 00 flour, but it works. So we've got the flour. You can see this, can't you? Yes. And this is wine. So I'm going to pour wine into the pastry, and I'm going to pour olive oil into the pastry. And there's already salt in there. And then I'm going to use a big spoon.
what sort of wine are you using, Katie? Is it a Pugliese wine?
No, it's rather a lovely one. Some sort of white Burgundy that a friend brought the other day. So probably a bit too nice to use in our pastry. But hey, you know, it's
I suppose it'd be a good way of finishing off a, you know, if you had something left in the bottle.
Exactly. and what I love about this, so you can see here, it mixes up very easily just with a spoon, and then I'm going to get my hand in there. You can, of course, do the whole thing in a food processor, but it's such a quick pastry to make. It's a bit pointless doing it in a food processor. And what I love is the smell of the olive oil. Now, I have used a good olive oil. Actually, it's got my husband's face on it. And there we are. And it's from Umbria, but it is a single estate extra virgin olive oil. And I can see that real green color in there.
What is the olive variety?
Gosh, I don't know.
Is it a blend?
Robin, this is what we're up against this morning. All of these women are really knowledgeable women, and they're going to ask me things, and I'm not going to have a clue. Robin's helping on the technology side. Yeah, I don't know, and the writing's too small for me to read without glasses. See if you can see that. So yeah, it's really intense olive oil. I can really, really smell it, and I think that's important. So I wouldn't stint on the quality of the olive oil in this. I would go for a good one. And the wine, I think it could be a much cheaper wine. It happens to be a nice one. So I can smell olive oil and white wine as I make pastry, which I think sort of seems to be quite bizarre, and why I suspect that it's an old recipe. Is why wouldn't you put water in? Maybe because you only had wine around and it was safer than water or something. It's supposed to, I know you've all got the recipes, but it's supposed to be from, or Rita thought it was from the Bourbons, who were in Puglia, and so it's a Spanish origin, which is why it's called calzone and not like the Italian calzone, but calzone would also describe, like, you know, the folded over pizza that encases a filling. So it's probably all the same root, isn't it? So I've got the pastry here, and I can see at the moment it's a mixture of colors between a sort of dark green of the olive oil and the white of the flour. Robin, do you think you could pass me the other one out of the fridge? But you can see how easily it comes together. And the other thing I really like about it is that you don't have to put any flour down to knead it, because the olive oil, thank you, means that it doesn't stick to the work surface. So it's really flexible, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Just make it one color and then rest it for about 20 minutes in the fridge. So here is one I prepared earlier.
Actually really good to have a dairy-free pastry recipe as well.
Yeah, and vegan.
It's full of margarine or what have you.
Yeah. If you use a vegan wine, then it is vegan for those that require that. I did that on a class once, and then I went and put Parmesan in it. No. I could have used a vegan cheese, but it wouldn't have the same flavor. So this is one that I've rested. Now, Rita told me that you should be able to roll this pastry out, and you should be able to blow, you can see me like underneath it, and the pastry should flap like a piece of paper. Yeah, really, really thin. And it's actually very strong pastry as well. It doesn't, well, I'm saying this now, it doesn't break easily. It'll probably break this morning, but normally it doesn't break. So what I'm doing now, this is my greased, slightly tired tart tin with a loose bottom. And I'm just going to think about how I'm going to put it in here. So I want a third to be for the lid, or just over a third for the lid of the pie, and then the rest to line the dish. So I'm probably going to do quite a sort of long shape and cut a bit off to get the lid going. Yeah, you can see how these Italian mamas have strong muscles on their arms from making pasta and pastry like this. Right, I've got a knife here. So I'll cut it into like a third and 2/3, because that bit's a bit thicker. Put this to one side, and then this is going to become my lid. So yes, do ask questions while I'm doing this, because I haven't, although I prepared the pastry, I haven't got one rolled out, so it'll take me a while. So now's a good time to talk to me or ask me any questions.
Do you pop anything on the chat? So Katie, do you have to use OO flour for this, really?
I'm sure you could make it with plain flour. I'm sure you could. It would just be a little bit heavier, perhaps. And I actually don't have plain flour anymore. I only have O flour in my cupboard. I can't see anything that you can make with plain that you couldn't make better with O. I just think it's such a beautiful, silky, super fine ground flour that proper O flour from an Italian brand is really good for mixing into sauces, bechamel sauce. It makes wonderful pastry, wonderful biscuits, cakes, anywhere that you'd use plain flour, or self-raising, you just have to add the baking powder. So yeah, I can't see I don't know why in this country we don't have that history. We only have our sort of slightly heavy, humid, plain flour.
Has everyone got the recipes? Sorry. I think Jonathan sent them out yesterday. I know. Oh, gosh. And if everyone keeps their screen on mute, then hopefully everyone can see Katie only as she's the speaker, if that makes sense.
Okay, so still got a little way to go on here. Oh, hot. So you can start to see, well, I can see that it's becoming transparent here and getting slightly thinner. But what I need it to do is to be bigger than this. So that's okay. I'm there, or almost there.
So I was making an Italian flatbread recipe this week, and it did suggest rolling it so thin you might want to use a pasta machine to get it that thin. So you're thinking of a similar sort of thickness with that pastry then?
Yes, it is similar to that. Yes, yeah. And it's still quite springy. That's why it keeps going back. I should leave it a bit really and rest it if I had time. And they make, I'll show you something else that they make with the same pastry as well. Right, I'm going to cut this now.
So Catherine's asking Katie what the texture of the pastry is like, because it's obviously got to be rolled out quite a lot. Kat's asking if that would make it tough or not?
No, I mean, it's so thin, even if it was tough, there's not enough of it to make a difference. So that's the lid. So I can put that over here. And then I can take my offcuts, put all this together. I mean, this would be an ideal pastry to roll out in a pastry roller. But obviously the pasta cutter they're usually 13 inches, 13 centimeters wide. So I couldn't do it for this. Yeah, they make these biscuits out of it with the offcuts, and she showed me this recipe, and I will attempt to show you one with the offcuts when the pie's in the oven. So has everyone been doing lots of cooking in lockdown and experimenting?
I think it's, I made the mistake of counting the other day how many times I must have done the dishwasher. Since
I know. I know. Well, I'll tell you what we're doing as well. So we reckon that we've started a new business every month of lockdown, because it was, so disastrous for us to get the news about the restaurants having to close, and I think we were all dazed, and then I think we kind of went into collective shock. And my husband, who's late 60s, sat on the sofa and just got really, really cold and covered himself with a rug in the middle of the afternoon. And we both thought, oh my God, he's going down with COVID. But I think it was shock. I think it was, if you'd had an accident, someone would come and put a blanket around you and they'd give you a cup of sweet tea and say, there, it'll be all right. But I think we were all, everyone in the, the country, going through this collective shock of what's happening to us, and not really getting sort of the attention that you might if you'd just experienced some crisis on your own. So anyway, having sort of gone through that and thinking, oh my goodness, we've got no business. 3 businesses are just closed, the Cookery school and 2 restaurants. We just thought, right, we've got to open a takeaway now. So we changed our business in Bray, first of all, from a restaurant to a takeaway, and got some of our staff, well, some of the staff were never furloughed because they just went straight into making takeaway food, and we had to organize getting takeaway containers, and we didn't have anything like that. We didn't have any delivery drivers. So Giancarlo and our 2 sons are our delivery drivers, and we just started making food that we thought would travel, because obviously some of it wouldn't at all. And so that was one new business started. And then about a month after that, we turned our London restaurant into a takeaway, because we thought that at first there just wasn't enough business, but everyone seemed to have left Marylebone and there was no one around at all. It was just these sort of completely empty streets. And I remember phoning up our chef who lives upstairs saying, can you go downstairs and hide all of the bottles of alcohol, hide anything, hide the till, hide anything, because there's going to be looting. I was so scared. And then he did, he hid everything, checked on the place. Then you've got to think of things like pest control when you've got an empty restaurant, emptying out the fridges. I mean, you cannot just close the door in a restaurant and leave it. So we had to go in and out, even when they were saying, don't make any journeys, stay at home. We couldn't. We had to go in and out of London, getting everything out of the London restaurant, making sure it was okay, kept the pest controls guys coming. And then we set up a takeaway in London. So we've got that running now, and that's actually a pizzeria. We never made pizzas before, but our head chef is from southern Italy and used to make pizzas like all of the chefs do from southern Italy. So he was really good at that. So we bought a pizza oven. So we're now doing pizza and beer from our restaurant in London rather than a fine dining Italian restaurant. So that's another new business. And we put fancy cocktails on. Do you know what everybody wants is beer. That's what they want, pizza and beer. So that's another one.
Wow.
And then, yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, well then our landlords in the area finally said, right, we'll let you off the rent for these months that you're closed, thank goodness. But we'd like you to take a pop-up shop in Marylebone High Street to revive the high street. So we've taken this massive premises that used to be an old Scandinavian furniture shop, and we've opened up a pop-up deli. So that was another new business. So I'm now learning about retail and buying stock and shelf life. And I bought some jewelry to sell. I've sold lots of secondhand cookbooks. I've sold vintage cookware. So we're now running a deli, a pop-up deli and shop in Marylebone High Street until September or maybe longer.
Goodness me.
So that's what we've been doing. And I've got to finish this low carb book by tomorrow. But other than that, it's been, yes, quite quiet really.
Goodness me. Wow, that's quite extraordinary. I mean,
So,
we've all heard lots of stories about adapting, but that is a lot to do, isn't it?
okay, so finally, my pastry is bigger than my base. So I'm going to, but you can see how strong it is. And it's still not actually that thin, but I don't want to bore you any longer with my rolling out. So it's pretty thin. You can't see because I'm facing towards the light this way, but I can see through it. So, and I like the fact it's quite sort of, I was going to say leathery, which sounds like a horrible word to describe pastry. And it's not. When you eat it, it's not leathery, but it's strong. So it's a good one to do on courses, this, because I can, people don't have disasters that easily with it. So there, I've put it into the tin, pressing it down. Now, for the filling, I have used leeks and these onions, which I can't remember what Tesco's calls them, continental onions or large spring onions or something, but they have an onion in Puglia called sponsale, and they use them a lot. They have a lovely sort of sweet flavor, and they look a bit similar to that. But I've sort of developed the recipe to use leeks because I love leeks. I love the flavor of leeks. They're inexpensive, available all year round, and so I'm using a mixture of onions and leeks, but you could use just leeks or just onions. And I've cut them up, and so actually shall I go back to the hob cam? So could you make Robin host again so that she can show this?
And that's hob cam. Where's hob cam? Here we are. Okay, hob cam. Okay, I've done that. So if you just carry on talking.
Yeah, so
There we are.
in here, can I put that down? Yeah. Can that come a bit
What you
closer?
can do, if anyone is struggling, you can click on Hobcam and then click pin video, and then you can keep that
So
posted at the top.
So I have thoroughly sweated the leeks and the, don't worry about bringing it down then, sorry about that, I hope your phone's okay. So if you can see that, I've thoroughly sweated down the leeks and the onions, chopped them up relatively small, but not too fine that they burn. And they've been cooked in olive oil. And then I put some, actually these are Kalamata, but in here I've got little Tajasque olives that are so lovely in flavor, and I made my poor son stone them all this morning because they're tiny and they came with stones in. So I was not a popular mother this morning as I made him stone them all for me, and I've just roughly chopped them, but most of them tore up anyway. And I've also got raisins in there, which is quite unusual, I think, for this combination. So there are fat raisins that have been cooked with these, so they've kind of softened a bit. And then into that is Parmesan as well. So that mixture has cooled down now. So shall I bring the pie over here? I think that might be better, mightn't it? Can everyone see this? If you nod, then I can see you nodding. So I'll move the pie here so you can see what I'm doing slightly more easily. And so then I'm going to put the filling inside. So it is quite a lot of leeks, but it's amazing how they come down. When I first started doing this recipe, I'd sort of buy 2 leeks and think, oh, that's plenty. And it's not. You need about 4 leeks and all of those onions. And I use all of the green bits that I can of the leeks that are soft, and I use all of the green bits of the onions as well. So collectively, I'm not looking at the recipe now, but I think it's about 600 grams of vegetables that go into it. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
I remember Rita telling me that you could use tuna as well if you wanted to, or anchovies into this, you know, any sort of filling.
I'm thinking of trying it with onions, so I've got loads of onions in, but
Yeah,
no,
I think
no
it'll
leeks.
be fine. And maybe something sharp like the sort of, you know, the piquant flavor of olives, just to balance against the sweetness of the onions. And although the sweetness is also there in the raisins as well.
Katie,
yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sue's just asking what the difference is between general flowers and OO flowers. Is it the flower fineness?
Yes, it is. And double O is the finest that you can get, certainly in Italy. So now my top that I made is really shrunk now. So I'm just going to give that a quick roll out here. The other thing is I did do this on a vegan class, and I was about to put Parmesan in, but what I actually did was I put nutritional yeast in instead. And I could tell the difference. I much prefer Parmesan, but my vegan customers were very happy with it, with the nutritional yeast. So if you do have to do a vegan recipe and you want a vegan pastry and filling, then this does work with the nutritional yeast.
This
so
is
I'm
only
going to put this
25
on.
grams of Parmesan, isn't there? So which isn't an awful lot. Julie's asking if you could put in a cheese, for example, salted ricotta.
Yes, I think that would be lovely. Yeah.
So that's firmer, isn't it? It's slightly drier, harder than a...
Yes, but I think it's only there for flavor, really. It doesn't do that much. It might bind it a little bit. I just made a bit of a hole there. So there's my lid. Now, see if I can remember how to do this. I've lost the scissors. Here we are. So I want to do that sort of curvy shape around the outside. So I'm going to trim this down to about 2 centimeters on the outside of the tin. And
I was just thinking, it's a good pastry to make on a hot day, surely, if there isn't any butter in there that's sort of melting away,
Yeah.
keeping that cool.
I think, you know, apart from the sort of, yes, it took a while to roll out and to be that thin, it is a really forgiving pastry. So then I'm going to turn, it really should be thinner than this. I just thought I can't bore you any longer, but it should go down like this on top. Can you see this? Charlotte, do you want to speak?
Which one do you want, host? Katie?
Perfect.
Yeah?
And let me just try.
Right, so then you put your thumb in there and you're folding up like this, down, move it round, down. So the pastry goes over my thumb. I'm sure plenty of you can do this anyway, because it's like a traditional way of closing a pie. And
I've seen this sort of thing done in Greece before.
Yeah, well, I think there are Greek origins to this. I mean, the fact that it has olive oil and wine in the pastry, and the proximity of Greece. Rita said it was from the Spanish, but you know, who knows? I think it's a really old pastry, and who knows where it came from, really. And if I'd made it thinner, wouldn't it be a bit similar to phyllo as well? So there we are. You can see it folds in nicely around the edge. But if you can't do that, you can always put a bit of egg underneath it and seal it with a fork. It doesn't matter if you can't do that way of sealing it. And then it's important to make a couple of snips in it, just to let the steam out from inside. And that's it. And it's not the prettiest of pies, I have to say, but I just love the flavor of it because it hasn't got the traditional sort of English egg wash on it. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't do that, but that's just not how I was shown, but it doesn't matter. If you want it to be prettier, do wash it with egg. So I'm going to put that in the oven now.
So Katie, what are you doing about your cooking classes at the moment? Are you doing anything online with the cookery school closed?
We've done a couple. Giancarlo's done a couple. I'm just going to check the timing on that. 35 minutes. So Giancarlo's done some Zoom classes, yes. I might roll this out on the hob so you can see actually. Seems a bit strange rolling pastry on my hob, but it's just the easiest way. I just want to show you one of these carta latte biscuits. So Robin, if you can find that book with the picture in, I'll show them the picture.
Now, Kay mentioned lots of Puglia and Turali recipes have wine in the dough.
Oh, do they? Yes, yeah. So here's my wiggly roller, my pasta roller. And thank you. So now I've got a strip of this very stretchy dough and I'm going to pinch it like this. So I'm going to pinch the end and then pinch it here, all the way along. And these are made for Christmases, but I think she also said christenings too. And they're called carta latte biscuits. So then you take your pastry like this and you fasten this bit to this bit, twist it round, and then the next one on. So they're kind of a spiral, but they have these pockets in them like this. So you can see that this forms this shape. And then what happens is you dry these shapes. And then, if you can see this picture here, you dry the shapes in just the warm air. So today would be a perfect day to do that. And then you fry them, and you fry them with a little wine or a sweet wine or something like that, and honey. And then you scatter them with cinnamon and icing sugar. and they're so delicious. And they often use a vin cotto, so that sort of sweet cooked musty wine, and fry them with that. Oh my goodness, when I had them over there, I just couldn't stop eating them. They were so lovely.
It was
So
the recipe in your Italian cookery course book.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. Page 454 of the Italian cookery course. But if anybody wants the carta latte recipe, I'm very happy to email it to you. And so that's what to do with all of the leftover pastry.
Beautiful.
Okay, so pies cooking. Is everything clear on that? Did I miss out anything? I did the filling, did the pie, did the pastry. So the next thing to do is to get the green beans cooking now. And so for the beans, I have got, now when I decided to do this course, I thought, oh, what's in season now? Shall I go over here again? What's in season now? And I Googled eat the seasons, what's in seasons, and it said runner beans. And I was thinking, oh, that's early, but maybe they are. Okay, fine. So I chose runner beans. And so yesterday, could I find any British beans? No, I couldn't. So I'm so sorry that these have come all the way from Kenya. But hey, they're supporting somebody in Kenya. So we'll pretend that they're English runner beans. But I've also got some flat beans here. Now, this is an Italian recipe taught to me by Gino Borella, who's this lovely older man who used to be head chef of San Lorenzo in Beecham Place for 35 years. And I'm sure that originally this would be using beans more like this, the flat beans, the stringless beans, rather than runner beans. But when he came over here, he was using English ingredients. So he's using runner beans in the recipe. And so also, I'm sure you can, let me put that under here. I've got some olive oil in here. And if anyone can enlighten me on this as well, but my Kuwaiti friend Amal has shown me a similar dish, and and I can't remember what it's called now, beans of fazouette or something rather, and it means beans cooked in a lot of oil, and they're sort of almost confit in oil. This doesn't have that much oil in it, but it's very similar. It's beans cooked in tomato sauce, and it's an Arab dish, and really delicious. So I'm sure that there's plenty of these kind of Mediterranean dishes of beans and tomatoes together. Now, this one has thyme in it as well. So I'm going to put the thyme in here. And it's going to have some chili. This recipe I wrote about 15 years ago. I have no idea why we said green chili in it. I would think in Italy, it's more likely to be those little peperoncino, those little tiny dried red chilies, but for some reason it's green. Maybe because Gino, that's what he could get when he worked at San Lorenzo, and this was the dish at San Lorenzo. And Gino is from the area of Parma, so he used the end of a piece of prosciutto, or you could use little bits of salami, or you could use, if you don't eat meat, you could use little bits of sun-dried tomato. But I think what the meat is adding to it is umami. And so if you want to replace it with something else, as long as you put that umami hit in this dish, then you know, that's just fine. But I think it needs something. So I'm just going to flatten my garlic cloves and add those.
Do you buy a ham and slice it, or do you buy it sliced?
What, so you mean the prosciutto?
Yeah.
Well, that's out of a packet, actually. I mean, if I'd thought about it, I could have got some from one of our restaurants, but this is just cheap and cheerful prosciutto. It is prosciutto di Parma, but it's from Tesco's. So it doesn't have to be anything, you know, I wouldn't use a Berrico, very expensive ham or anything. And it could be bacon. I wouldn't use smoked bacon, but I think that would also have that intense kind of meaty umami flavor. So you could use a lovely cured pancetta, you could use proper British bacon, anything just to give that umami. So here I've got some garlic just roughly chopped, and I'll just get that going. And I can also put the meat in now as well, so that becomes a little bit crispy. I have to, ask for forgiveness on this recipe as well, because I wrote it a long time ago, and the Italian cookery course was my second book ever, and it had 440 recipes. I didn't even do English A-level at school, and I don't know how I got into writing. I'm very much enjoying it, but I had no training, no sort of, I don't know, I didn't know what I was doing. I just started writing these recipes. And when I read the recipe yesterday, I was thinking, that's mad. Why do I do it that way round? And why did I say green chili? And I like to think over the years, I would write a better recipe than that one.
But these things evolve, don't they? And, how you cook, and you sometimes discover different ways of doing it that you prefer, don't you? So your book, due tomorrow, how many books will that be now? Huge
14,
number.
I think.
Really? And your most recently published book, was that your low carb book?
Yes, Reverse Your Diabetes. I know, that's also bizarre in my life as well, that I spent years writing about Italian food and pasta. And I have to say that pasta nearly killed Giancarlo, because he was just eating vast quantities of it. And I have nothing against pasta. I'm going to cook pasta in a minute, and I think it's a lovely thing to eat, but not in huge quantities and not as regularly as he was eating it. And I think for him, he'd come from this kind of farming community with not much money over in Tuscany, and then he made it to the West End of London, and he could have food like he had never been able to have it before. I mean, he remembers going to bed hungry as a child. That's how bad it was. And he said that his tummy would hurt because he was so hungry, and he found it really hard to sleep. I mean, that's terrible, and no child should ever have to go through that. And so I think that when he then came to London, sorry? Oh, good. My son says it smells delicious. I wish you could smell it. I think, when he came over here, he kind of took it to the extreme and thought, I can have what I want now, and ate too much. And bless him, he gave himself diabetes. Type 2. I have to be clear, type 2. And so we've really, really cut down on our carbs. So this is a great dish to have. And now I use green beans as a pasta base. One of the recipes in the books is for this lovely lemon cream and Parmesan sauce, which is something that Giancarlo used to cook for me years and years ago when he first had one of his restaurants, and he was courting me. And I loved this pasta with this lemon Parmesan sauce. But now I would have it on green beans rather than linguine.
Really good idea. I noticed there was a nice recipe, green beans, on your low carb website.
Oh yes, lowcarbtogether.com, which we're going to expand that website, and we're going to be doing online low carb courses and online, because you asked me about the cookery school, and online, more and more online Italian courses as well, with various different teachers. But also we are opening our school again to small groups. I think we can't have any more than 6 or 8 people in a class, but there is room to have them distanced from one another. I can't even bear to say distance, because to me that's not what Italian culture and food is about. It's about embracing people physically and emotionally and spiritually, and feeding them food. And the idea of having someone away from you it hurts so much, but we're going to have to do it.
So when are you opening the cookery school, and how many people will you be having in at a time?
I think up to 8 people we can get in there safely, whatever that means. And we hope to open, I don't know, maybe in a few weeks, because we have to allow time for people to buy onto the courses. And everyone, the vast majority of people who had places on courses that had to be cancelled have been very gracious about it and said, hold on to the place, hold on to the money, and we'll come back later in the year. So only now are we sort of just writing to everyone saying, hey, we can start welcoming you back.
That's really good. I mean, from my own perspective, I've noticed a lot of cookery schools that I work with have been really unsure about what to do, and some are trying to.
We still are.
Some are saying it'll be October, November before we even consider opening. It seems to be really mixed picture.
Yeah, and also we might change our mind on that. So I don't know. I'm being vague because I don't know. But we're hoping that we can open. And actually, distance wise, we can do that, because you can give everyone your own station. They can have an induction hob. They don't actually need to come into contact with anyone else. They don't need to share their food. It's a really sad way of having Italian food. You know, we should be all sitting around a communal table, but who knows? Who knows? And quite how enjoyable the courses are going to be, because we want them to be really fun. And, you know, I guess they can be, but it's just in a different way.
But then don't you think people like to work on their own quite a lot as well? I find people sort of run to get the stations on their own, you know, quite
Yeah,
often,
I know.
you know, not sharing with a partner or something.
Yeah, well, I suppose we'll know in advance if they're going to come with somebody or not. And then we could do private ones, because you can come with your own bubble. And Stefano, our main chef there, is on a demo area, and it's separate from where everyone else cooks. So he can maintain his distance. He's actually had it and he's got the antibodies, but I know that that doesn't mean anything, because there may be different strains and stuff like that, but it's encouraging to think that he's had it. So he can maintain his distance, and you can have a family in, or, you know, a work bubble in. They can come into the school and they can all stay in their bubble, and we don't need to come anywhere near them. We can put the food out onto a station here. We can back away and they can come and help themselves. So there are ways around it, and we're determined not to let the school die, not after 20 years of teaching people and building our name and as, you know, this sort of hub of Italian recipes. And so it's got to work, hasn't it? Maintain a positive attitude.
Absolutely.
Right, so with my beans then, so I'm cooking the beans. Cook the beans in salted water. You see, I didn't even read my own recipe, did I? So I put the beans in to cook in here with a little bit of water. And then I've fried up the garlic, chili and ham together until it becomes crispy. Actually, you see, that's a bit that I would rewrite, because there's no point it coming crispy, because you then put wine in. Who wrote this stuff? And so then once those have softened, I'm going to put wine in, and then I'm going to put the tomatoes in. So I've done it completely differently to my recipe, but I did practice this yesterday, because it's years since I wrote this. And I thought it was delicious, and we all gobbled it up, and Flavio said it smells nice. So there you go. So you can see the beans softening here. I'll turn the heat up and get them to cook through. So it works in so many different ways. And that's there. So while those finish cooking, I've got some wine I'm going to put in here, and I've got some passata here as well. And then that will just, in fact, I may as well just do that now. And they can finish cooking in that lovely juice. So there's the wine. Bring that up to the boil. This is a delicious wine. This is I don't know if it's organic, but it's got no added sulfites in it. And over the years, I found that I really reacted to sulfites in wine. And each one is hand tied with a little piece of the vine from the grape. And it's so lovely. And it's biodynamically grown, you know, according to the phases of the moon. It's amazing, amazing vineyard. That's my last bottle going in here. So we've got wine, we've got Parma ham, we've got garlic, we've got thyme. I don't think I've put any pepper and salt in. So we've got pepper and salt. And I put the chili in as well. And you could just put chili flakes in, but it is quite nice to have that kind of hit of spiciness. And about 100 ml of passata. Or it could be some tinned tomatoes if that's what you've got. Or it could even be nice, fresh, soft tomatoes. Or a good way of using up overripe tomatoes as well, and put them in here. Turn that down so that can just cook away. And one of the things I love about cooking beans is in the Italian way is that they really are cooked. you know, for some time, and they're soft. And the Italians don't believe in those kind of squeaky beans that are undercooked, in my opinion. I know lots of people love crunchy green beans. I quite like them soft and flexible, and I think the sweetness comes out in them. So I'm going to let them cook away just while I get the pasta on. So I have water bubbling. Well, it's not bubbling, but it soon will be over here. And I have some linguine here, but it could be spaghetti. I wouldn't use fresh pasta for this. I would only use dried pasta because the sauce is quite wet, and I think fresh pasta would go sort of flabby. So I'm going to use the dried pasta instead. So I'll put this much in, and that comes up to the boil, which hopefully it will any minute. Flavio, did you salt it? Yeah. Okay, so he's salted water. So I can talk to you now about what's going to go inside it. So we've got some mozzarella. We've got cherry tomatoes, which some of them I've cut in half. They were little long plum tomatoes, so I cut some of them into 3. I've got some parsley from the garden, which I'm going to chop up. I've got some basil over there. I've got capers, and I've got a garlic clove, which I'm going to grate. And I've got some red chilli there as well. So you can see that.
What sort of mozzarella are you using for this?
Actually, it's cheap and cheerful cow's milk, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be buffalo mozzarella. That would be lovely. Doesn't really matter too much. There's quite a lot going on, so I think you can economize. I've been asked to keep the cost down of this low carb book so that, you know, lots of people can benefit from the recipes. So again, in my head, I keep looking for low cost ingredients, and but then, you know, it's also nice to have really gorgeous things like buffalo mozzarella. But for this book, I can't do things like that. Everything has to be from Tesco's or Asda, and available to everyone. So I can't say things like free range chicken or organic or anything like that. I have to just keep it completely accessible.
Who's publishing it?
Kyle Books.
Great.
Right, so I've got the parsley there. I've got some basil here as well. Hoping, oh, it's gone off. Oh, you annoying thing. Sometimes that hob doesn't work. Put it over here. So in theory, it should be that the linguine goes in. Flavio, what did it say on the packet? Yeah. I know, but they normally are pretty accurate. I do believe the packets, when it's an Italian brand and it says, I love the fact it gives you 2 different, really?
Yeah, this was the 200 grams.
Oh, but I was going to, is that half the recipe?
It's 2 portions.
2 portions, okay. When it says on an Italian packet, is it that one? It was a different one, though, wasn't it? Oh.
8 minutes. Sorry.
8 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, damn.
You know, when it gives you the 2 timings, so one is al dente and one is cottura. So I always think that one's for English taste and one's for Italian taste. So the al dente is for the Italians and the cottura is for the English. Yes, it was. I think it was in Rome. Everywhere we went, we just, even though we're used to eating pasta al dente and we had Giancarlo with us, it was almost like a slight crunch in the center of the pasta. I didn't really enjoy that.
That's really interesting. I've noticed the same, and I thought, whoa, I thought I was cooking
in
it.
Rome.
You know, yeah, in Rome specifically.
Yeah.
My God, it felt almost undercooked for my personal taste.
Not enjoyable.
No.
Yeah, to us, but that's how they like it. Yeah. And in Amalfi, when I worked there in a couple of kitchens, that was really interesting because they would undercook the pasta and then they would finish cooking it in the sauce. I mean, I know that, and I don't know, it was for longer, because that sounds really obvious, like you always put the pasta in the sauce and toss it around, but I mean literally cook it. So say there was a pasta that took 12 minutes to cook, like, you know, a hard pasta like this. They would cook it for, say, 7 minutes, and then they would give it 5 minutes in the sauce, so that the pasta would really, really absorb the flavor of something like a seafood sauce. So you've got all the seafood juices and all the wine in there. Oh my goodness, the pasta was delicious. You could just take a strand out, and it was so tasty, so tasty. So I thought that was really good to notice what they did.
I wonder if it would be a terrible faux pas. I'm just thinking on my next trip, could you ask for your pasta to be a bit better cooked? Like, you know, in terms of you might specify like a steak or something.
Yeah.
Would that be awful?
Does it matter?
Well,
They know that we're not Italian when we open our mouths.
yeah.
And they're probably used to it. I found it quite hard to find good restaurants in Rome. So many of them were sort of rubbishy tourist ones. That I remember on one of the occasions, with the boys were quite young when we were doing our Rome research, and we saw that, and the boys were going, I'm so hungry, to starving little kids, and it was really hot, so we just dived into one of these tourist restaurants thinking, no, I know this is the wrong choice, it's a waste of an opportunity, but we went in anyway. And the food was so bad, Giancarlo stuck his fork into some pasta, and the pasta literally was stuck around the fork. So lifted the fork up, and all of the pasta was stuck onto there. It was so bad. And so he marched into the kitchen and just went absolutely crazy in Italian. How can you treat people like this? And, you know, I don't care if you normally go to tourists. That's not the point. And I'm a tourist, but I'm Italian. I don't think you should be doing this. You're misrepresenting Italians. And I was just, me and the boys were just in the restaurant like this, just cowering, thinking, no, is this so embarrassing? And he recook it in front of him, with him still in the kitchen, and came and said, now I'll eat my pasta. We'd kind of lost our appetite by then. Oh dear. Yeah, he was furious.
Katie, Tori's asking, do you like da Enzo in Rome?
Da Enzo.
In Trastevere, is it? Sorry, my Italian's I'm a Spanish speaker.
That does ring a bell. It does ring a bell. It's so many years now since I've been there. I know Da Teo was really lovely when we were there, and he was always there. Teo and his wife were there. I thought his food was nice. Da Enzo rings a bell, but I'm sure it's lovely. So I've just turned the pasta around, turned it down too much. I'll let that boil away. What was it, Flavio? 7 minutes? 8. Alexa, set a timer for 7 minutes.
8.
I know it was 8, but if I've had it on the minute. So,
Susan's asking if Flavio might come and say hello. Is he a keen cook?
Yes, Flavio. Who asked that?
Susan.
Susan. So here is Flavio.
Hello.
Hello, Flavio.
Very short. So come up there.
Very small.
So Flavio's 18, and well, you can say what you're doing now.
I'm working in Bray in the kitchen, part-time pretty much. And eventually I'm hoping to get a job, an apprenticeship at the Ritz in the kitchen there as well.
It was all planned before lockdown.
And 2 days before 2 days before I was supposed to go in for work experience at the Ritz, it got cancelled. So,
Oh no.
yeah, but the head chef there, John Williams, he seemed very keen on having me, which was really nice.
Fantastic.
So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll get another chance, another opportunity to go back and have more work experience there.
How exciting. Actually, a guild thing. I think Stephanie Jackson's son works at the Ritz.
Oh, right.
He's a chef.
Yeah,
Okay.
They have a massive kitchen of like 80 chefs or something, and he mentioned about 12 of them were all apprentices. So, yeah.
That's really good. It's beautiful food, isn't it? They do such
it was
it's really special.
Yeah, the look is, you know.
We had to go and sample it as parents just to make sure it's the right place for our son.
Yeah.
It was essential to go and sample it. And I did think it might be, I don't know, a bit poncy and maybe not full of flavour, which is very naughty of me to think that. But I did think it might be like that. And I have to say, every mouthful was absolutely delicious, delicious food.
I think that's what they do so well, isn't it? They managed to actually just make it amazing, and it's not about the sort of the dining room and all of that. It is
or the look of the food on the plate, you know, being amazing, and then you actually eat it and you think, oh, you know, I'm sure you've all had that before, and you go to eat something a bit poncy and you just think it just hasn't got the flavor of, say, mama's cooking that might not look nice but tastes incredible.
Totally.
But I have, it was amazing, wasn't it? It was amazing.
Yeah.
Both Giancarlo and I got quite emotional because we then went down to the kitchen and met John Williams. Giancarlo knows him anyway, and a bit, not that well, but a bit. And I don't know, the whole thing was so impressive, and the size of the kitchen and the deliciousness of the food that, it was quite emotional, wasn't it? So there's the garlic. I've grated the garlic just so that you don't get, all right, thank you, big bits of garlic. I've got some capers here. If I could have found them, I would have chosen the capers in salt, because I think they're so much nicer than the ones that are in that sort of vinegary brine, because I think you taste the vinegar rather than the capers. So I've rinsed them once, I've rinsed them again. If they were fatter than that, I would certainly cut them down, because I think that I prefer smaller ones anyway, but they weren't available yesterday, so I've got these ones. So those are going to go in there. And I've got some chili here as well that I showed you before. So I've got chili, and I have tasted it, and it's medium hot, so I'm putting quite a bit in. And I know when I write recipes now, when I used to write recipes, I used to say, and 1 red chili finely chopped. What was I thinking of? That was the most ridiculous thing to say, because you have no idea, looking at a red chili, as I'm sure you all know, how hot is that chili? Can anyone tell me how hot that chili is? You can't know, can you? And yet there I was writing recipes saying 1 red chili. So now I say to everybody, you know, cut your chili in half around the center, taste it from where the pith is, which I know from that chili workshop that I think the Guild ran some time ago, and add it accordingly. I've got some of these lovely Tajasque olives that Flavio's stoned this morning, and I've got basil in there, I've got parsley in there. You could put thyme in if you wanted to, and then I'm going to stir all that up with the olive oil that I've lost. There, thank you. It doesn't say where the olives are from, okay, but they are from an estate in Umbria. That's what I know anyway. And what I loved about this recipe is that the sauce is raw, but the pasta is hot. And I thought that was quite typical of the Roman pasta that we had. There were a few things like that had hot pasta and cold sauce. And I thought, oh, that's just delicious. And it was hot when we were there as well. So why have I moved that? Because I want to plate this up when that pasta comes out.
So the capers and the olives and things, where do you tend to buy them from? What would you recommend?
Well, because I'm in low carb writing for, you know, people with diabetes and wanting everyone to find the book accessible, I'm buying things from Tesco's because I have to at the moment. So that's where I went shopping yesterday, even though this isn't anything to do with low carb. But I did get a jar of Tajasque olives. So I found them in a jar in oil. And so that's why we've used those. And they're tiny little things.
In Tesco?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would. Well, maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't. I lie. They're Waitrose. Italian Tajasque olives. Yeah. In fact, I didn't buy them. They were in my cupboard. I bought some other ones in, oh, I can never get my head around that. There we are, Italian Tajasque olives. Waitrose. Oh, even the oil that they were in just smells absolutely gorgeous. Oh, I've turned that pasta down too much. Come on. Bubble, bubble, bubble. Let's see where we've got. Alexa, how long left on the timer?
You have 10 seconds left on your 7-minute timer.
Okay. So I'm sure that that's done. Yeah. Alexa, stop. Flavio, that's good and salty. It's delicious.
So the oil that came from the olives, would you use that in anything else?
Yes, I was just thinking, I don't think we did, which is tragic, isn't it? And since going on that Guild of Food Writers Sustainable Kitchen workshop that you have, I have changed the way I write recipes now. I tell people to put the oven on, you know, 5-7 minutes before they need it, rather than what I was doing at the top of the recipe saying heat your oven to 180 and then you don't need it for 20 minutes because you've got to rest the pastry. You know, I've done all that and thought much more about waste as well. And so yes, absolutely. And I probably could have used that oil. So here's the pasta. Now what I'm going to do, here is the sauce. I've got my cheese here and I've got my ricotta here. I'm going to put the cheese in now, but I didn't put it in before because when you're stirring this through, can they see this, Robin? When you're stirring that through, if you stir that through a lot with the mozzarella, then the mozzarella sort of starts to bleed into it, particularly if it is good buffalo mozzarella, and it gets really messy. So I prefer to put the mozzarella in at the end. So now I'm going to put my pasta into the sauce. And stir that through mostly, and then I'm going to put the torn mozzarella in and use the tongs to stir it. Flavio, do you think you could get that pie out for me, please? And then I'm going to use the tongs to put it onto the plate. Whoops. And so it smells really, really fresh. I can smell that basil. I can smell the tomatoes, certainly the olive oil as well, because the olive oil, it's got a bit too much pasta there. The olive oil, is, you know, yes, that's fine, yeah. The heat has meant that the aroma of the olive oil comes up. It's just lovely. No, I haven't done it yet.
But you've got 2 bowls.
I knew that's why you did it. Why you did that much pasta.
No, it's because you said do 2 portions.
Yes. So I'll put the extra pasta on there. So I think that's a lot of pasta, but it is for him, and he's huge, as you've seen, about 6'4". So I think he can get away with it for the moment. Right. So let me go back under here again so you can see the prettiness. Hang on.
That looks so nice.
Can you give me a piece of blue towel? And thank you. And then I need a clean dessert spoon, please.
It's so fresh and summery.
No, I'm not going to use a spoon for pasta. I wouldn't dream of it, would I? But what I loved was that now this is cheap and cheerful ricotta, but in Rome, they gave you fresh ricotta that was a bit more crumbly than this. I'm just going to use my fingers because it's for us. Yes, don't you want the ricotta? And the ricotta was just put on top. Did you have this, Charlotte, in Rome? Do you remember ricotta on pasta?
No, I didn't actually. No.
That's over there.
No, I didn't have anything as sort of light and fresh as that. I found a lot of the options sort of a bit more heavy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in Rome for that long, and I probably didn't make the best choices, frankly.
And also, a lot of the options, when I went to Rome, the whole vegan thing was kicking off over here. So I thought, oh, it's bound to be happening over there as well. And I remember saying to people, so, you know, do you have much vegan food, or what are your kind of modern food trends in Rome? Because I can include them in this book, and I can, you know, put what's happening in modern day Rome at the moment. I couldn't find anything at all that was modern in Rome, and all they were telling me. And so I did this kind of survey thing, and I asked loads and loads of young people and older people. Well, actually, I said, what would your last supper be? Well, if you say that to an Italian, they go, no, l'ultima cena, and they get all kind of watery-eyed, and They think it's a terrible thing to say. That, you know, we always say that, you know, what would your last supper be? We never take it too seriously. We just think of our favorite meal. But to them, there's, I don't know, the religious connotations or something. It was not the right thing to say. So I had to change that and say, what's your favorite meal, not your last supper, to stop them getting emotional on me. And what would your favorite Roman ingredient be? And they would say things, even the young people, right? Their favorite meal is, I can't remember what it's called now, something beginning with T, and it's the inside of a calf's stomach or a lamb's stomach, when it's got the congealed milk inside the intestines. And so you can get this, you can get this intestine filled with congealed milk, and it's chopped up and it's tossed into pasta. And that was, most of them, that was their favorite meal. My goodness. Otherwise, they would say things like carbonara, amatriciana. Nobody had one thing to say about some new dish that I'd never heard of. So I thought, right, how am I going to write a book on Roman cooking that hasn't been done before? Everyone's got these dishes in it. So I went right back to early Rome, and I found this amazing guy called Mark Grant, who was some sort of professor of studies, and he wrote this book about the cooking of ancient Rome, and he did his research, he did loads of translations, he tried to bring it all to life. Amazing. So I recreated some of his recipes as well. And so rather than find anything new in Rome at all, I went right back, so that was interesting. But this was one of the lighter dishes I found. So I hope you can all see that now. So this is pasta alla checca. Now, we also didn't know what checca meant, because checca is a sort of slang word for gay, you know, camp or queer, or a word like that. It's not a terribly nice word to say. And so we didn't really know why they would be calling the pasta gay in a derogatory term. However, it's nothing to do with that at all. Checca was it's short for Francesca, who was a famous Roman restaurateur, a female restaurateur. And this is her dish. So this is pasta alla Francesca, or checca, as she was known. So I think you can see a woman's touch to that with the lightness and the color. And so if you do that, I hope you enjoy it. Certainly one of our favorite dishes.
It's gorgeous. I've just looked up the name. Is it, sorry, my Italian is non-existent. Pajata?
Pajata. Pajata.
Pajata.
At all. Pajata.
P-A-J-A-T-A.
That's it. And what is it? What are the intestines of?
Yeah, the cow with the milky intestine. I mean, that's a bit.
I ate it though, because they kept saying, Senora, would you like to try some? And it's actually illegal. You can't legally buy it. But on the black market, if you know a butcher, they'll sell it to you. So since we were asking restaurateurs and restaurateurs' son, they went, Senora, I can get some for you. And so I felt like, oh, all right then. And I did have it, and it had a sort of similar look to ricotta, because it's that sort of milky cheesiness that went through the dish. It was fairly nice. I wouldn't repeat it. Right, so here is our pie.
Lovely.
And so you can see it's shrunk again, which makes it quite easy to get out of its you know, case. She says it's very hot, so I can slide that over there.
That looks so nice. It's really reminding me of pies like that I've had in Greece.
Oh, really? Yes. Yeah. Well, I bet it has the same origin. I bet it does. So then,
That's beautiful.
it's, you know, as I say, it's quite robust, so it's pretty easy to get off here as well. And it keeps quite well in the fridge. So I'm slightly embarrassed about the thickness of this pastry. This should be thin. So it does, I should have allowed longer to roll it out. But I want to show you inside. You see how it doesn't look so pretty either. So I think if you were going to serve this, it may be worth doing the egg wash and just becoming a bit un-Italian, or scatter it with herbs or something, or serve it cut. But what I want to show you is inside the pastry.
Nicely firm, seeing the way it cuts there, even just fresh
Yeah,
out of
it's
the oven.
honestly, it's really forgiving. It's a lovely pastry. Right, so if I can tilt this up, can you
Lovely.
see that? So you can see it is reasonably thin, but it could have been even thinner than that, and it's still really strong even when it's thin. So,
Leslie's saying it would be a great pie for a picnic. That's such a good
yes, it would. It would be a great pie for a picnic. And also the filling. I've never strayed away from this filling because I just think it's delicious with the raisins and the good olives. It's got to be good olives and the leeks and stuff. So I've only ever done that, but I'm sure that there's so many other fillings. And, then
Susan's mentioned an Aldi, a good source for ingredients, and actually that's the one thing I buy from Aldi is some decent olives. So they're quite good in there actually.
yeah, I haven't got one. There is one in Maidenhead, so it's about 25 minutes from here. But yes, that's a good one as well.
Aldi are doing a good Pugliese olive oil. That's one of my favourites.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
actually very nice for basic olive oil.
I know people swear by it, don't they? By Aldi, I mean. So these are the beans. Now, this was a starter when I first had it, because I suppose if you think about it, it's got the meat in, it's got everything you need. So you've got your protein in there as well. So there are the beans. So by all means, you could have it as a starter, maybe with some fresh thyme on top, or have it alongside. I put it because I thought you might need something wet alongside the pie. You know, you can obviously have a green salad. I don't think the Italians are well known for their salads. They're better known for their antipasti rather than their salads. So I might have this as something wet alongside my vegetarian pie. So that's it.
Oh, Katie, thank you
As we do.
so
20
much.
minutes over.
Thank you. So that was just so brilliant. And actually, Janet's put a message on the chat saying she's sorry she's had to go, but I think she summed it up fantastically. Great demonstration, delicious recipes, and have inspired me to cook more Italian food. And I certainly feel the same way. And thank you so much, Katie.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Would anyone like to ask some questions now? If you'd like to unmute yourself, please do. Anything you would like to add, please do.
So Aldi and Lidl, 30% cheaper. Well, maybe I should make the effort to go there then. Yeah.
I've been impressed actually. I've just moved to an area that has one, and I was skeptical, but it's
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie. Katie, that was wonderful. I'm starving hungry now. I could just eat everything. I bet it tastes wonderful. I can taste that pie. How deep is your pie tin? Is it about 3/4 of an inch old in old money? Roughly. It's a shallow one, isn't it? It's not madly deep.
Like a good food writer, as we are, I have a tape measure in the kitchen, don't we all? 2 centimeters.
How much? 2
centimeters. So yes, okay. Just about 3/4 of an inch. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Thank you.
So yeah, that's why it's important to get that pastry thin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sally says super demonstration. Good luck. Thank you.
We're going forward with the cookery school. Yeah.
Yeah. All the best. All the best with all the businesses.
The conference of the pie is well, it's now 22. So my dish must have been, what did I do with it? Behind me. 24. So it's 24 centimeter tart tin. Yeah. All right.
Fantastic.
Have a question. Read diabetes.
Hello, Katie, it's Susan. Thank you very much for an absolutely fantastic demo, and I'm certainly going to try the recipes. I have, in fact, a couple of friends who've got diabetes. I'm going to recommend your diabetes book to them. I wondered if your sort of transition to this low-carb diet had enabled Giancarlo to reverse his condition.
Yes, so I should have mentioned that. Yes, yeah, he did, and that's why we started writing it. So he was told in 2011 that he had type 2 diabetes, and we didn't take it terribly seriously. We went to see a dietitian who just told us to have smaller portions of pasta and carbohydrate, and really to cut out sugar in his tea and coffee. And that was kind of the advice we came away with. And he actually got worse, and his millimoles, which is how they measured his blood glucose, rose to 79 millimoles, which is you know, fairly serious. And so only then, he was really, really poorly as well. I mean, he was riddled with gout. He was overweight and found it difficult to move around. He'd got numbness in his toes. He lost his vision one weekend when he was driving, and that was really the final straw. And he was so scared by that he went to see a doctor, and he went to see a private doctor because it was the weekend and he was too scared to wait. He thought he'd had a minor stroke. So it was either A&E or a private doctor. So because he went private, he paid £85. It was the best money we ever spent for half an hour. And that doctor asked him about all his symptoms. And actually he was textbook type 2 diabetic, but we'd never realized. He had the weight around the middle. He was sleepy, tired, hangry. His mood swings would go up and down. He was always so hungry for food when he hadn't eaten that he would dive into the fruit bowl because it's instant sugar. So all of that should have been absolute clues that he had type 2 diabetes, but we were completely ignorant of the symptoms. So he then found out that he was actually gluten intolerant, and that was a lifesaver for him. And he gave up all the gluten, which meant that he gave up all the wheat and the pizza and bread and biscuits and all of that. Plus he was told to cut down on sugar from this dietitian. So he went low carb inadvertently. And then his HbA1c, his blood glucose levels, came right down quite quickly over a matter of months. And so the doctor then said, actually, you no longer have diabetic numbers on your blood glucose. So he inadvertently went low carb. And then while I was looking at gluten-free recipes, I found lots of this kind of low carb thing. I'd never heard of the term low carb. So actually it was low carb that cured the diabetes, but it was gluten intolerance that put him into it. So we sometimes don't mention the gluten intolerance because I think people can say, oh, so I can have gluten-free pasta then. Well, no, you can't, because gluten-free pasta is even worse than normal pasta for raising the glucose. So we sometimes sort of skirt over the fact as to how he got to low carb because we don't want to confuse things, but that's how it happened. And he has put himself into remission, and he's been in remission now for, I think it's 7 years or something. So it's fantastic. And yet we eat and drink and have a jolly merry old time with the occasional bowl of pasta and the occasional slice of pizza from our new business. And still he's okay. So I'm really happy to say that. And I think both of us have become quite evangelistic about it, but why not? And he was the one, Giancarlo was the one that said to the publishers, look, you know, I'm amazed, you know, as to what I can do. I've lost 3.5 stone in weight. I feel fantastic. I've got rid of the gout. I just feel amazing. We need to write a book about this. And the publishers, Kyle Cathy, said you can do it if you write it with a medical expert. And so we got hold of Jenny Phillips, who is a wonderful nutritionist in this area. And she wrote the science behind it. And then we got a foreword written by Dr. David Unwin, who is a specialist now. He's a GP, but he's become a specialist in type 2 diabetes. And so we collectively, the 5 of us, brought our first book out. And then the Daily Mail picked it up, which we were really delighted about. So that's the first one. And they pushed it and it went to become a bestseller, which I was shocked about because I had massive arguments with Kyle Books about the word diabetes appearing on this book. I just thought, surely if you just call it weight loss or something like that, and then it can help with diabetes type 2. And they insisted on putting this diabetes here. And I managed to get weight loss really big. Anyway, it was the diabetes that I hadn't realized, this massive epidemic of diabetes that we have. And that was what pushed it to be a bestseller. So I was entirely wrong, but I was very happy to be wrong in that instance. And then this was our second one that came out in March this year. Again, it went into the Daily Mail, but sadly we were overshadowed by coronavirus. But it's still, you know, doing okay. And it still shows the want for people to reverse their diabetes. And so then the third one will come out next March, which will be low carb in 30 minutes, still about reversing your diabetes type 2.
So there have been a couple of questions about that new book. So it's coming out in March, and it's basically 30-minute recipes along the same theme.
Yes, it will. Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Really
But what I really want to do is write a book about low carb, because I think it's so beneficial for so many people. It doesn't, you don't have to be diabetic to go low carb. And I think collectively we're just eating too many carbs. So, and that results in all sorts of problems. And I had IBS, and I went to see a specialist. I had an endoscopy, a colonoscopy. They advised me to have a low-fat diet, which I wasn't prepared to do at all, because I love fat and I love my food. And happily, touch wood, my IBS has gone for the last 3 years now since I've been low carb. So I'm really pleased about that too. So I think it has lots of benefits for lots of people.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I did
a
it.
bowl of pasta now.
It's interesting. I did it a long time ago. I've read a book by Zoe Harcum.
Yeah.
Which was really, I thought the advice was actually quite good, but I just couldn't, I didn't get my head around the recipes and good ideas. And I think the advice is really good, but there's definitely a big gap in terms of how you can translate that into really good food.
Yeah. And we're not no carb. You know, we're not keto, we're not no carb, we're low carb, and that's a big difference as well. And we've sort of developed this flexible plan that some people, if you're really active and you don't have a history of diabetes, still maybe cut back on carbs, but have more than someone like Giancarlo, who can't afford to have more than 50 grams of carbs a day. So I think that, there's a difference, and it's important to recognize that, rather than grouping everybody into one saying, thou shalt do this. You know, it's a flexible approach.
Absolutely. Sue's asking if you'd recommend that for weight loss and healthy eating. I mean, essentially,
yes,
you are saying so.
Why I've done it, I've lost a stone and kept that stone off through being low carb. This is type 1 may benefit from a low carb diet, and various. I know a Dr. Ian Lake, who has got type 1 diabetes and reduces the amount of insulin he takes because he's low carb, but it's very different. And I know the type 1 diabetics get very upset by their condition being confused with type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is usually, not always, but usually lifestyle, and type 1 is nothing to do with that. It's just bad luck. So you can't say to a type 1, well, you're obviously eating too many carbs, because they get very upset with you. Rightly so.
So is type 2 diabetes then, it would not respond to a low carb diet? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, type 1 wouldn't. Well, or
type 1 would not, but type 2 would. Sorry, I'm
type
confused.
1 is different because your body can't make insulin, so you have to inject it. But there are various people who say that type 1s will also benefit from a low carb diet, because if you're having less carbohydrate, you need less insulin, so you can inject less insulin. So I think they would benefit, but it's not that you can put it into remission. Type 1 is there for life. You can't ever get rid of it.
Yeah.
So type 2, you can, I'm saying in remission, and we say reverse on our book, but the doctor that we writes the books with say you have to be careful that it's always kind of present. So you can't, Giancarlo can't now go back to eating huge amounts of pasta and pizza again. He can never go high carb. So he's in remission from it as long as he stays low carb.
Right.
So type 2s must stay low carb forever, or they'll put themselves back into having diabetes type 2 again. And, you know, unless you take medication, and that's the other thing, a type 2 can take metformin for the rest of your life, but there are side effects from that, and you want to be on medication if you can do something about it.
Yeah. So reducing your insulin, is that, do you feel better from that? Do you happen to know?
I'm not sure if you feel better, but I think that they just, well, the people I've spoken to with type 1 diabetes are quite keen on having less insulin. And why that is, I don't know. You'd have to speak to them. One of our guild members is type 1, isn't she?
Who's that?
Which one now? And I'm sure she would talk about it. And if you look at, there's a site called Mrs. P's Kitchen, I think. Mrs. P, she's a type 1 diabetic, and she's gone low carb to, again, reduce the amount of insulin that she's taking. But that's not my field, I'm afraid. I'm all about type 2, not about type 1.
Thank you, that's really interesting.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Katie? Okay, can't see anything else. If that's everything everyone has to ask, I think we'll things up. Katie, thank you very, very much for running.
Thank you all for being here.
Today.
Lovely to see
you.
you.
Inspiring and delicious. I'm going to try all of the recipes, put the ingredients on my shopping list. And thank you to everyone for joining. And what a lovely morning. And yeah, good luck to Flavio as well, and hopefully he can get to cooking at the Ritz soon. And,
I hope so.
Lovely. One more thing. Barbara's asked about the recipe for the biscuits, for the carta latte biscuits.
Oh yes. Shall I send them through to you, Charlotte?
Yep, and I'll forward them on. That would be fantastic. Yeah. And if anyone else would like them, do drop me a line and I'll send them.
Yeah, I'd love to see how you get on with them as well, and pictures.
So you used the pasta cutter, the roller, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, right. I'm going to have a go.
All right.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Katie.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Stay well, and hope to see you in the future.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks. Bye. Thank you.